From the Offices of Investment Pitch, this is Ticker Talk, and I'm Ted Ohashi. I'm pleased to have with me today Dr. George Adams, President and CEO of Ventripoint. Ventripoint is a medical technology company, and we're very pleased to have George with us today. Last fall, or last year, I guess, when Ventripoint went out looking for a president and CEO, how did they find you, and what was it that you brought to the table that satisfied what they were looking for?
Well, one of the people on the board, one of the directors, knew me, and I had just finished with my previous company, and I was taking the summer off. So he called me up and said, "Are you interested in getting back into the saddle again?" I've done 6 companies before this, so I said, "No, go away." And then he called me back a little later and said, "Come on." So I came out. I took a look at the opportunity. It's a cardiovascular diagnostics opportunity, which is what I do. And it's just an overwhelming opportunity, so I said I would sign on.
So what were they looking for from you?
Well, they were looking for somebody to direct the company and raise the capital they need, somebody with capital, public market experience, so that, have an investor group that gets together and it's really the technology was done. And the product was almost ready to go. It really was a matter of raising enough capital to start deploying it into the marketplace and see how well it did.
And what did you see there that attracted you to the situation? Was it those things that you just mentioned?
Well, I saw a company that had been gone through the first valley of death, which is, you get a technology out of a university, you got to tame it into a product and hope you get to the market before the market's moved on, really.
Right.
And so yes, it was just an overwhelming. Here's somebody that created something absolutely unique that met an unmet need, and it was ready to go. And all it really needed was a little bit of money and to get out there and start showing people how good it was. So those are rare opportunities in the medical world, and so I just thought that's something I could certainly accomplish.
So Ventripoint basically has a technology that creates a 3D image of the heart. Is that
right? So you can look at somebody's heart with using an X-ray machine or an MRI machine or with an ultrasound machine. Ultrasound is very benign. You can use it on anybody, anywhere, anyhow. Very quick, very easy. MRI is a little bit more high tech. You have to go to a special room. You have to build a special wing in the hospital to get. And can't have any metal anywhere inside you, or you can't go to an MRI. And of course, X-rays are. You can't do too many X-rays before you get into trouble. So ultrasound is really the best and most universal imaging tool. And Ventripoint is able to take these multiple 2D images in all different slices and create a 3-dimensional image of what your heart actually looks like.
How does it actually do this?
So we actually like to call ourselves the first dot imaging company in the world. We use dots. And so I'd like to show you a little video of exactly how we do it. Okay?
Right.
So in this video, you'll see a slice through the heart. It's actually upside down and mirrored backwards. So the left side is actually the right side, and the top is actually the bottom. But this is how cardiologists view these things. And what we do is you get the cardiologist to put dots, identify things on the package, on the image. And once they get about 20 dots in there, we actually record where those dots are in 3-dimensional space. So we have a GPS system in the system, and we get this 3-dimensional constellation of dots, which absolutely defines the shape of that heart. We then go send the GPS information to our database, and it comes back with a 3-dimensional reconstruction of what, in this case, the right side of the heart looks like. And the doctor can look at, rotate it in space, and say, "Yeah, okay, that's a normal heart," or "Oh, that's a very sick heart." But one of the features we built into the program is you can touch on any dot, and when you do that, you get both images. You get the 3-dimensional image as well as the 2D slice through the heart. So cardiologists and sonographers have never seen this before. They're used to just looking at 2D or 3D, never the two at the same time. This is a great learning tool. They learn to really imagine and visualize what the heart looks like. And it's a great quality control tool because they can say, yes, that's exactly where I thought the heart was in that 2D, blurry 2D image. So it's all about putting dots on a 2D image and then locating those dots in 3-dimensional space so that you get an absolutely accurate picture, 3-dimensional picture of the heart.
Can you compare that, the Ventripoint system and the process with, say, an MRI, for example?
Right, so for an MRI, you would do the same thing. You would take slices through the heart, so when you're lying in the MRI, but the MRI takes an hour. You've got to lie in this machine for 50 minutes while they move the magnets, bang, bang, bang. And if you move, you got to start over. So that's a very claustrophobic, and a lot of people don't make it the whole hour. On top of that, I mean, you got to come back for a second appointment, whereas in this case it's ultrasound. So the doctor says, you know, your heart sounds a little funny. Let's just go have a look. Step in the next door, you know, and they can have a look at it right there, so you don't have to go back for a second or third visit. And obviously, it's much cheaper, less expensive to do ultrasound. We can get you a absolute, perfectly accurate image of your heart, and I'll do all the calculations on volumes and ejection fractions and cardiac outputs in 10 minutes.
So cheaper, faster, better?
Cheaper, faster, better, more convenient, and your doctor, your cardiologist can do it instead of having to call up the radiologist.
What part of the Ventripoint system is proprietary?
So that we spent about 5 years building the database with all the possible shapes that you can have in a heart. So that's a database that we own. We bought all those images. And then the whole software algorithm, the process it goes through is to find the little pieces of hearts that are in the database and stitch them together into a new heart, which is exactly like the one you've got. That's the proprietary magic, and it's patented. And we also have a lot of proprietary knowledge in there that we've developed over the years.
Now you're starting with hearts. What's the market potential for this technology in the cardiac market?
Right. So we started out looking at blue babies, tetralogy of Fallot, or congenital heart disease in general. So because the pediatric cardiologists have to deal with that. If you have a problem with your heart and you're a baby, it's the right side of your heart. If you have a problem with the left side, you don't get born. So unfortunately, as you get older, you do in the left side of your heart. So all the adult cardiologists are focused on the left side of the heart. So the people who really need a Ventripoint system right now and have wanted one for 20 years are the pediatric cardiologists. So that's about a $200 million market, okay? But the really very large market is back in the right side, but in the adults, where people have pulmonary hypertension, high blood pressure on the right side of the heart. So they have trouble pumping blood through their lungs to feed the blood into the left side of the heart where it gets pumped out to the rest of the body. That's a much bigger. There are 20 million people in North America who have breathing problems, asthma or smoking or cancer or whatever, and they are at risk for having pulmonary hypertension and dying from a heart attack on the right side of the heart. And there's no way to look at the right side of the heart except for this procedure. So that is actually a $1 billion to $2 billion market for pulmonary hypertension.
That's billion with a B.
B, yeah, billion with a B. Yeah,
okay.
It's a big market. That's the one that when we talk to the larger companies in the world, the General Electrics and the Philips and the Siemens and the Toshibas of the world, who are all the top 4 people who make not only MRIs but X-rays and ultrasound equipment, that's the one that they've never been able to crack. It's the pulmonary hypertension they've never been able to figure out.
Now, from an investor's point of view, or from a potential investor's point of view, let's talk about some of the risks. Is there a technology risk here now? No.
We've built the machine, we've deployed it, we have the world's expert cardiologists who've been using it, and they've written the papers up and they've submitted them for publication. I would say there's no technology risk left in this company whatsoever on this product.
Right.
The risk is all market adoption risk and really competition. And we don't have any competition because nobody's, in 20 years of trying, no one's been able to figure out how to look at these very blurry images and get a computer to figure out which part is the heart and which part is blur. And so we don't have, again, one of the things that attracted me to the company was a product ready to go and a very much unmet need with a killer application in pulmonary hypertension that we have to build a database for, and no competition in sight whatsoever. So that's a pretty unique opportunity.
George, technologies like this need approvals. In the US, what is it, the FDA?
Yes.
And Canada has its own system, in Europe. Well, where do you stand with approvals?
Right. So we're fully approved for all clinical applications for the right heart in Europe through a CE mark, and in Canada, Health and Welfare Canada. We are in the process with the FDA to have that approved. We need to do some more clinical studies in an American center To facilitate that, we've deployed 2 machines in the United States, one in Omaha, Nebraska, and one in Portland, Oregon, both in pediatric hospitals. Again, the first application will be pediatrics, and so we're in a position now to go ahead and run those clinical trials. We just have to have a meeting with the FDA and be sure we're doing exactly what they want us to do, and that we'll be able to convince them of the and it has to be substantially equivalent. It's a 510K, so it's only a 90-day process. So once you submit the clinical information, the FDA tells you within 90 days whether you're approved or not.
And that approval might come?
I think we can get the clinical trials done this summer and get the approval by the end of the year.
Okay, okay. And the Canadian application is Sick Kids in Toronto?
It's fully approved, yeah. Yep. So Sick Children's in Toronto was the first Canadian site that we enabled, and they did some research with it. They've now gone clinical with it, so we've now trained all their sonographers and all their cardiologists are using it on every patient that comes in the door and needs a heart scan. They're using our machine now, rather than sending them off to the MRI and waiting months. Yeah.
And what about the business risk here? I mean, all we hear about these days is hospitals and budgets and government spending and all of that. I mean, who's the decision maker in terms of purchasing the equipment? And, is this something that will be a priority in a hospital's budget?
It will be, because 10% of all hospital admissions are for cardiac patients.
10%?
Okay? 10%. Yeah. So every 10th person comes in with a heart problem. And, I mean, cancer just went past heart disease in terms of the #1 killer, but heart disease is still the #2. And so there's, the cardiologist makes the decision if he needs a better tool. In this case, it's a wonderful situation because the MRI machine is 100% used, and spending an hour on an MRI for one patient is a pretty expensive thing to do with an MRI if you don't have to do it. In the same hour, they can do 10 or 15 people with breast cancer or all sorts of other things because they just want quick images and they're out, right? So yeah, in this case, it's more about liberating the MRI machine to get on with treating large numbers of patients and getting the same information from the cardiac, from ultrasound. So it's not about, this is about better healthcare all the way around, because you liberate a good expensive machine to do something it can only do, and it's cheaper to do the ultrasound. And so we haven't seen any problems with our getting it. As every cardiologist we've ever shown the system to said, okay, send me a quote. I want one. It's just like that. It's just, the company hasn't had the resources to do a lot of marketing. And yet we have dozens and dozens of people who want these machines. We only have 10 of them, so we had to be very selective about where we put them, because we need those 10 to be in the very high-end cardiac centers so we can run multiple clinical trials and submit them to the FDA.
The units that are in use right now, are you getting feedback from those centers?
Yes, they love it. It exceeds their expectations, and they have very high expectations from looking at the video. Every one of our users is a keynote speaker of a major conference in the next 6 months, and they're all taking our slides and our data there to talk about them. Yeah.
Share with us your vision for Ventripoint over the next, say, 3 to 5 years. What do you see happening?
So I would imagine that Ventripoint will be acquired sometime in the next 2 years, I would say, because every cardiologist in the world has a 2D echo machine that was sold to them by one of the big three, either General Electric or Philips or Toshiba. And so they all know where those machines are, and we're a way to make those machines far more productive. And we won't, to build out a global reach will be a very long and arduous process, and they already have it. So we will be acquired probably as soon as we get up to maybe 100 customers.
And what is your financial position right now? Do you need money? Are you raising money?
Yeah, we as I said, I came in 6 months ago, and we just got enough money to build the machines and get them out there and make sure they were all functioning well, and people were happy with them and they were ready to go. And we've proven that to ourselves now. So now we need to raise a bit of money to scale the company so we can deploy 100 to 120 machines next year, starting in the fall of this year. So, and to do the marketing that goes with that, although will say that word of mouth is doing a wonderful job for marketing for us. So we already have dozens and dozens of hospitals and cardiologists who are in the process of ordering a machine. Yeah.
And what does that dollar figure look like?
Well, we should do about $15 million in sales next year.
Okay.
And it'll be a nice, high profit, high margin business. And that's just scratching the surface. I mean, there are, as I said, hundreds of thousands of 2D echo machines out there, and we'll have done 100 by the end of next year. So you can see we have a long way to go.
Well, George, thank you very much for coming in and sharing the Ventripoint story with us.
Thank you for having me, Ted. It's been a pleasure.
From the offices of Investment Pitch for Ticker Talk, I'm Ted O'Hashi.